Edith, good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, great to have you on. So we're going to be talking about mastering enterprise sales and the need for a good product. So I want to start with, does every company need to sell to the enterprise to get to 100 million ARR? And at what stage ARR did LaunchDarkly bring in its own enterprise plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in my prior roles, I'd been product director at TripIt, which was very bottoms up. I call it kind of cheap and cheerful. A traveler loves it, they start using it. When I started LaunchDarkly, we had the same viewpoint that what LaunchDarkly does is feature flags of feature management, and we thought it was just what every startup in the world should be using. When we first started selling, in fact, we didn't have an enterprise option. It was all self-serve, put down a credit card. Somewhat to my surprise, our first customers did not want to buy that way. So our first customers were enterprises that actually wanted to sign a contract. And at the time, we didn't have any salespeople. We just had me and some engineers. So I really pushed them hard down the self-serve path and said, look, if you want to do an enterprise deal, I'm actually going to charge you more because you're going to want to redline a contract. You want to do a deeper security review. I'm going to have to work with procurement. And the customer said, absolutely, that's the way we want to buy. So we went enterprise very, very early, not because we thought it was the only path to 100 million ARR, but because that's the way our customers wanted to buy.
And do you believe that every company does need to sell to the enterprise to get to 100 million?
No, I think there are many successes out there where you don't. I think the wrong sale at the wrong time is actually very destructive to a company. I think it's just a matter of looking at your product and who wants to buy it and then adapting there. We do still have a self-serve level. I was looking at the numbers right before this, and we have about 5% of our customers who never talk with a salesperson, who just put down a credit card. We love that. There's many startups that just want to buy that way. There's also many enterprises that very much want an enterprise style sale.
So you mentioned there in the first part, in terms of selling into the enterprise, that came from this sort of demand from these early customers. How did you actually then launch the enterprise plan and sort of like roll this out, productize it?
It was a gradual thing. I mean, the name of the company is LaunchDarkly. We're continually releasing features. It was a recognition of the features that our enterprise customers were asking for. So we always had an enterprise plan. We just added more and more to it. For example, SSO support, premium support is quite popular. Just recognizing that there are features that differentiate an enterprise.
What were the sort of lessons and initial impacts on the business of having the enterprise plan and enterprise sales versus the self-service and the SMB?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a harder sell to the company. It helped a lot that the engineers were also support and SEs at the time. So they got the same questions that my co-founder and I got. They understood why people were asking for these features. And they were really on board that, like, hey, if we believe in this product, these are the things we have to add. So there wasn't an artificial divide of, hey, the salesperson is asking for this and I don't get it. They're like, no, I just got off the call because I was fielding questions from customers too. We need to add these. We need to add auditing. We need to add better permission structures. We need to do this because this is what people want.
And how did you build out the enterprise sales team? And how long did it take to master enterprise sales?
I think we're still in the process of it. We're going to have over 100 AEs pretty soon. So the advice I give other companies is start small with a couple of AEs and continue to build on top of that in terms of what the market is telling you. We've gotten pretty sophisticated. I'll give a ton of credit to our current CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, in terms of segmenting it into, well, if you are an SMB, we have a package for you. If you're mid-market, we have a package for you. If you're enterprise, we have a package for you. And then if you're super enterprise, there's a different package. I don't think there's a monolith called enterprise sales. It really gets down into segmentation about what's appropriate for what level of customer.
And are you doing for the enterprise sales from an acquisition perspective? Is it ABM or what is what is your route to acquiring customers, or the most effective sort of route?
Yeah, we do a lot of content marketing. So most of our sales is actually inbound, which is a nice luxury for us because then we can segment out people who want a salesperson. I think a shocker to me is how surprised prospects are that we have a salesperson. I think there was a trend about 5 years ago of we never need people, just buy it self-serve. So I'll get kind of pleading emails from a prospect of like, hey, how do I get a salesperson? I'm like, just write sales@launchdarkly.com. It's that easy. We'll get you a salesperson. And then there's someone who can help them understand how LaunchDarkly works, help give demos to the rest of the company, and then really just help them get it into the hands of users in terms of getting through procurement, security, compliance.
Gotcha. And so would you say that, and I guess we're seeing this kind of elsewhere, that even in the enterprise kind of sales space, or if you've got an enterprise software product, that when the customer is coming to you, that they've kind of, made up their minds in terms of if they're going to buy or not. They just need that support and help to kind of, get them over the line and to kind of get the product up and running.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sell short the amount of effort to do a sale.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of navigation of a company's internal politics. A lot of times we'll have a champion who really wants to buy, and they're the one saying, hey, I need collateral around this to get this other group on board, or this product group really wants to use it. This other product group is a little skeptical. Help me convince them. So it's not just taking an order. There is a lot of skill involved in navigation.
And what would you say in terms of, let's say there is the complexity, but let's say the velocity or the typical sales cycle for enterprise sales? Do you have an indication of what is a typical sales cycle? I know you mentioned there's various sort of different levels of the enterprise sale itself, with even the kind of the super plan. But let's say, like, on average for an enterprise sale product, what is that velocity? And how have you managed to kind of, let's say, speed that up, if that speeding up, has been required?
Yeah, it's something we track. So I talked earlier about how we started to segment the sales team. So we have SMB, mid, large, extra large. They have nicer titles when they talk to customers. That's basically it.
Yeah.
What we found is that sometimes our sales cycle just maps to the size of the org. That the engineering team has made a wonderful product. It works. And then they just say, hey, just to go through legal takes this long because that's our turnaround. And it has absolutely nothing to do with your product. And that's why I think it's a good idea to have a mix of different rhythms so that you're not beholden to, say, one big whale customer that might or might not come in a quarter.
Makes sense. Well, so from I guess from the mastering the enterprise sales side of things to the need for a good product, how would you rate and define the importance of a good product to ensuring that enterprise sales will be successful?
I think having a good product is table stakes. I think the old days where I used to work in engineering was you had this massive installed software that would take an SE and maybe some professional services 3 to 6 months to even do a basic proof of concept. And that led to all sorts of inefficiencies in the product itself. And then it also led to all sorts of inefficiencies in the sale and the customer, because it was much more about convincing or massaging the customer that it would work rather than letting them actually see it. I think with the rise of SaaS, a customer can log in and try something within 10 minutes. I heard earlier speakers today talk about how the buyer isn't always the one they think it is. People will use a throwaway account to try something out is very, very common. And you just have to accept that and say, hey, if we have a wonderful product that people could try on their own, they'll get to the point where they hand raise and say they want a salesperson. But you can't sugarcoat a bad product. You can't trick somebody into buying it and saying, hey, it'll get better after you buy. They see it with their own eyes. Something that we at LaunchDarkly focus on a lot is time to second dollar in terms of after a customer buys, how much do they expand? Because we're in a seat model. So for us, this is really a strength of we have a wonderful product that once people start using, they'll buy more. Another metric we pay a lot of attention to is second order. So second dollar is within an organization that additional people are picking up seats. Second order is basically a champion has moved from job to job and they want to take LaunchDarkly with them. And this again gets back to having a great product that if they're switching, say, from BMW to somewhere else, they say the product that I had at BMW, the product that I had at Atlassian, I need it at my next job. I cannot function without this at my next job. And I need to have LaunchDarkly help me. And again, this goes back to a great product. You need to have great salespeople that can help sell, and then you need to have a great product that people really enjoy using.
From your earlier point, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And for my sins, but I'm sure many others have been there as well. I was that enterprise sales guy selling that enterprise software platform and saying, well, for the proof of concept, it's going to be 6 months. We have to install, on site. It's going to cost you 100K or whatever. And then the competition came in just at the time where, there was more SaaS products being born in the cloud. And they were like, well, we can spin you up a demo in 15 minutes. And, I was competing against that. And it was just very difficult to compete against or to win against. We certainly did our best to compete. But I think now we're definitely seeing like almost none of that, right? I think, almost everything is pretty much born in the cloud.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was just so painful to sell back then because you just had these terrible long feedback cycles. Versus, again, if you could spit up a relevant demo in 15 minutes, people will buy.
Yeah, long feedback cycles and long sales cycles. I mean, this was to telcos, so it was 2 years, like in an RFP process, and only to get the no at the end of the 2 years after the RFP. But getting some therapy here with you, Edith.
Yeah, it's fascinating. We have we do have a combination, I'd say, of bottoms up and top down, and that because we do have a credit card sale, somebody will buy like a $10,000 package. And then somebody else will notice it and say, hey, we need a salesperson to kind of rationalize this back into our process, which we honestly think is great.
Well, talking at that I guess segues into the bottom up and top down. Like, how have you gotten bottoms up or PLG, if we give it another name, product-led growth and enterprise sales to coexist? And how have you gone about this? Is this something you've always gone about?
Yeah, I mean, at LaunchDarkly, so we started 7 years ago, and I think there was this big myth then of that salespeople aren't needed, everything will be bottoms up. I think when you look at that more closely, what you find is a lot of organizations very much want a salesperson. Some of them don't. Some of them are allergic to salespeople. Some of them say, I'm quite happy to buy with this credit card, never bug me. Others absolutely want a salesperson. They also want what I think some people kind of sniff at as all the trappings of enterprise sales. Like we have a customer success team where if you're rolling out LaunchDarkly, we'll help you be successful. We have SE solution engineers who will help you understand how to use it at a technical level. If you want premium support, we have a package you could buy for that. None of which I'd say are kind of the bottoms up method, but they're things that our customers wanted.
What would be, in terms of sort of like recapping, if you give leave the audience with your top tips or your blueprint to master enterprise sales as seen at LaunchDarkly, if you could put those in a few steps, what would those be?
I'd say depending on where you are in your life cycle, recognize where you are. I have seen companies falter where they try to implement enterprise sales too soon before they have any sort of product market fit. And then I've also seen people try to use enterprise sales where it's not needed. The customers say, hey, we don't want to buy that way. We're happy to buy with a credit card. If you're starting to feel a pull from the market in terms of people saying, I want you to fill out this RFP, I want a salesperson to do a demo, recognize that. Recognize that you are getting pulled in enterprise sales way. And then really embrace it as a company is the other tip I can give. We every all company meeting, we have one of our salespeople present a customer of the month. And they talk about that customer and how they got to know that customer. And it's really rewarding for the team. You know, if you're in B2B sales, to have that view of this is how a customer is actually using it instead of just an abstract, you know, unique ID in your amplitude panel.
Awesome. And so not only is it how the customers use it, but the feedback that they're giving as well about the product.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we do feature management. We let our customers launch features, roll them back, control who gets access to them. And it's really transformative for a lot of the businesses that use LaunchDarkly. And it's great to have our salespeople sharing those stories back to the product team in terms of like, this is really transformative. Like the stuff we take for granted because we use LaunchDarkly on LaunchDarkly is actually sometimes like earth shattering for customers in terms of getting their weekends back, being able to be more productive and being able to be more innovative.
Awesome. Well, Edith, thanks so much for taking your time out today to share with the audience of CEOs here at SaaStock for Blueprint. Really appreciate it. So thank you once again, Edith Harbaugh, CEO, founder of LaunchDarkly.